Welcome back. I'm Nadira Hira once again. And I have to say, while it's always my sincere pleasure to be your festival MC, I've actually spent most of my career thinking and writing about culture and society, from ancient art to race in the 21st century. So it's maybe no surprise that one of my favorite parts of any festival is just sitting down, virtually, with the real people who are doing the real work. That's why I'm so excited for today's big picture plenary session. The time is now. We're in the midst of the deepest global health, social, and economic crises in a century. And they come at a time when we're already facing staggering biodiversity destruction, increasing inequalities, threats to fundamental rights, and a true climate emergency. Our future literally depends on the decisions we make today, both as individuals and as a single, powerful human community. There's really no choice. We must act now. We must make this moment a turning point for people and for planet. But how? That's what we're going to explore today with our extraordinary panel. And it's going to be a great conversation, so make sure to keep it going online using hashtag #TurnItAround and tag us at SDG Action. I am counting on you. So let's meet our speakers. And just give us a wave as I introduce you speakers so we all know who you are. Our first guest is no stranger to bold transformation, having been a climate champion at the helm of UNEP, the UN Environment Program, for a decade. And of course, he's now heading the UN's lead development agency with operations in 170 countries. Welcome back, UNDP Administrator Achim Steiner. Our next guest is the newly appointed Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation for the government of Italy. She's also been Deputy President of the Italian Parliament, and she's always championed sustainable development and movement building. We're so thrilled that you take time to be with us in your first 30 days of office. Welcome, welcome, Marina Serini. Next, we have a young Jamaican who's using her passion for culture and media in service of people and the planet. She's the creative producer of Talk Up Radio, a public radio program that tackles global social and political issues by centering youth voices. Please welcome the ever-inspiring Christina Monteith. Up next is a civic entrepreneur and globally recognized thought leader on gun control, police violence, drug policy, and civic and climate action. She's also co-founder and president of the Igarape Institute in Brazil, one of the world's leading think and do tanks. Hello and welcome, Ilona Szabo. And rounding out our lineup is an award-winning photojournalist. She's used her talent and courage to document gender and social issues in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, literally reframing perceptions of people and cultures. Welcome, Canon Ambassador Tasneem Al-Sultan. Thank you all so much for being with us. So I want to begin with a quick fire question, just to start us off on a note of possibility, and to hear a little something from each of you before we dive all the way in. So here goes. Can you tell us one thing that you think is possible today that felt impossible before? And I don't want you to think too much about it. Just share whatever comes to your mind first in like 30 seconds or less. Achim, why don't you kick us off?
Thank you very much, and very proud to join such a wonderful panel of women leaders. I hope you can hear me okay. And 30 seconds, so let me put a bold idea forward. The world is now talking about net zero emissions. So by 2050, I think we will be at a point where virtually all the electricity we produce on this planet, and as we know, with electrification, with electric mobility, we will need more, will actually be produced entirely with renewable energy infrastructure. And that, I think, is something that is not just science fiction. It is now the realm of possibility. And perhaps coming out of this crisis, we will see a far greater effort, and we're already sensing it, about not only tackling climate change, but access to energy, clean energy, a world in which we actually no longer have to burn things in order to build things. And that is a vision, I think, that one could take out and certainly work with wherever we are.
That is perfect. It's perfect. Marina, what about you?
COVID-19 has taught two main lessons from my point of view. First, only together we can fight back the pandemic's multiple effects and negative effects. Only together we can protect the most vulnerable people. The second lesson is the world must be better prepared to unexpected challenges. And this is possible only if we relaunch an effective multilateralism. And finally, COVID-19 crisis has widened the gap towards the achievement of many of the SDGs goals, but it has also created the opportunity to rethink our future, our common path towards the 2030 agenda.
So great at this. Ilona, what about you?
Well, I just start by saying thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and it's time for civic action and responsible leadership. Our society has rediscovered the importance of solidarity, and we have realized that we're really interdependent. So we have the chance to rewrite, to recode our common future. So let's learn the lessons from this moment of crisis, but embrace the opportunities to build back better. So I would say that we, the peoples, and I mean citizens, parliamentarians, philanthropists, mayors, migrants, workers, entrepreneurs, activists, we do have the power to build a more sustainable tomorrow, but starting today. Let's do it. Let's turn it around.
I love that inclusive we. I feel like that is a mantra unto itself. And finally, Tasneem, because I hear we lost Christina's feed, but that's the virtual world. So hopefully she'll get to join us. But until then, Tasneem. Oh,
thank you for having me.
Tasneem, yes, go straight ahead.
Yeah. Do you want to go straight to her first?
No, go right ahead. We have a lot of movement here in this virtual universe, so.
Right. Agreed. Thank you for having me. I'm overwhelmed, over the moon to be here and participate. I think this year has taught me a lot about compassion and empathy. This is the first year that I've realized that my actions are actually will make an impact to the rest of the world, that we're all in this together, that I might be depressed, but everyone else is depressed with me, that I might be worried, but everyone shares the same sentiments. I've also realized that there's a lot of times that representation was a very big issue, especially as a photographer. And this is the first time that people were forced to hire local storytellers and local photographers to represent and speak about themselves. So it's a lot of emotional thing. And of course, the last one is because I haven't been able to travel, I realize how my footsteps of me not being on a plane has actually a better impact for the rest of the world.
And we can certainly all share in that lesson. And Christina, let's round out with you. We're so glad to have you back.
Hey, no problem.
Did you hear the question? Should I pose it again?
What was it? Sorry.
What's one thing that feels possible today that was impossible before in your mind?
I think, when we're going through our daily lives outside of this period, we have so many different challenges that we're dealing with that get in the way of kind of understanding the big issues. So I think when humanity has been stripped back to what really matters, a lot of us find it far more possible now to understand the need for, organizing our communities or institutions or systems around human needs, around the things that really make us connected and important as people. So I think that's one thing that's far more possible right now in this period.
That's incredible, and a great note to end on, this idea of reflection and being able to have the time to think deeply. Now I want to go a bit deeper with each of you, and I normally would say let's keep an eye on the clock because I want to spend 4 minutes or so with each of you, but you've done so well in this lightning round that I can tell you're going to keep us on track. So with that, perhaps Administrator Akim, we can start again with you. What are the opportunities emerging in this moment that you see?
Nadira, when I join a panel like this, and when I see Tasneem, I see Christine, Ilona, and Marina, it sort of strikes me that I think it's the power, the agency that we have to influence things. Tasneem just said something, even in this very depressing moment, we actually share something. We are in a fairly unique historical moment where something is happening to every one of us at the same time, even if the impacts are very different because of where we live, who we are. But I think if you take the stories of each one of us, I mean, I never thought when, I grew up in the south of Brazil on a farm riding a horse, One day I would be sitting in New York leading a UNDP development program. Not sure Marina, when she left school, ever thought she would be deputy foreign minister, or Christina running a program, or Ilona in Brazil with her institute, Tasneem with her camera. I think it is that power that each one of us can bring to change. And, you know, this is the SDG Festival of Action. So the SDGs are, to me, a compass that is not only here for, you know, governments to negotiate, to monitor, to meet. It's actually about how people can deal with the challenge of complexity. Being an individual can be very disempowering when you look at what is happening around us right now. And yet, in the midst of this pandemic, what has been to me the most powerful message of all is how individuals have made a difference. You know, in the midst of the pandemic, I lived this whole time here in New York, and you all remember the traumatic images we had last year. What actually kept us going? It was my neighbors. It was the 20,000 people who got on a bus or on a plane to fly into New York as medical professionals to volunteer, to help out. So as we think forward right now, I think we have to rediscover that power of people in making a difference. And it's not always because you are in a position of influence, because wherever you are, you actually have influence on the people around you, on the things you care about, and how you organize yourself. And I think we live in this extraordinary time where thinking forward becomes something very different to where we were a year ago. That's why I love the slogan, building forward better. It's not to look, you know, to where we were. We all know that that was a troubled time already. It is more envisaging the kind of world we want to live in, and that it cannot be done as just individuals, but certainly not also as individual countries. And this is the power of the idea of this Sustainable Development Goals vision, that in acting together, we can actually tackle some of the greatest challenge of our time and come out of this crisis into a 21st century world that actually could be better, where inequality and sustainability suddenly are no longer threats, but they become things that unify us in the way we want to tackle them. So that's very much where I see also my role with the United Nations Development Program, the United Nations family. It's to help connect people, starting with people such as everyone who is on the panel this morning, and the millions like us around the world who actually want to do something.
That's wonderful to hear. Just quickly, would you say then that there's a new sort of social contract that's possible in this post-pandemic time?
I think the social contract was already being rewritten. It was certainly being challenged before the pandemic. Remember, you know, we were a troubled world before COVID-19 hit us. Across the world, people were stepping out onto the streets. They were actually stepping back from the political systems. The social contracts of our time were being challenged in so many ways by people who felt that something that was happening around them is not what they wanted to happen, that injustice, unfairness were increasingly things that were being perceived as realities, even though from a purely material sense, economic statistics sense, we are the richest generation, we have the greatest technological possibilities, but you know, there is an element of fairness that we have lost along the way. And secondly, here we are at the beginning of the 21st century with everything we know and we have and can do, and we're actually threatening life on Earth. And that war, as the Secretary General has called it, the war on nature, or as I would also say, the war with ourselves, that we have essentially allowed ourselves to drift in that very narrow interpretation of what is human progress, what is human development all about. I think that kind of social contract is being, first of all, challenged right now. I don't think we have rewritten it yet, and we should not be complacent. Remember,
but we're evolving it in real time.
Exactly, but it requires us to step forward and to be very conscious that this is an opportunity, and if we don't seize it, we may very well drift back into where we were, because there are many who have done quite well out of what was going on before, and they're not necessarily the ones who are leading the change right now. So social contract from below, Ilona was speaking about it earlier, it is the people who will drive this, whether it is the Fridays for Future. You know, I mean, what an extraordinary time we live in when teenagers are actually setting global policy because the adults are failing. This is
I can see you're getting so excited, which is wonderful. And with that, let me actually move on to Marina so we can get everybody in the conversation. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about the opportunity of this moment, but moments like this also come with tremendous responsibility. That's certainly true for your government. Italy is hosting the G20, pre-COP, and food system summits this year. So do you think these convenings can actually help make 2021 a turning point? And what might that actually take?
the international agenda on sustainable development. As you told, we hold the G20 presidency. We will be partner of the UK for the presidency of COP26 on climate change. We will host the important summit about food security. The G20 Italian presidency, for me, is an unmissable opportunity for agenda setting during these challenging times. In particular, the joint session of the G20 foreign ministers, foreign affairs ministers, and development ministers will be a unique opportunity to strengthen our efforts on food security. We intend to support and expand the FAO-led Food Coalition, a multi-stakeholder global alliance to mobilize political, financial, policy and technical support for COVID-19 response and recovery. The G20 Development Ministers meeting in Matera will set the international cooperation agenda on other two pivotal issues, such as actions to improve financing mechanism for sustainable development, and second, actions to strengthen territorial development and the rural-urban linkages. Addressing food security will be also the main objective of the UN Secretary General's Food System Summit. We will host the pre-summit, as you mentioned before, in Rome at the end of July, and it will be a key moment for the identification of positive actions toward a timely achievement of SDGs 2. As partners for COP26, Italy will host a series of significant preparatory events for the conference, in particular the pre-COP in Milan and the Youth for Climate. It is very important for me to stress this appointment because it's a driving ambition event which will give young people the opportunity to draw up concrete proposals on climate change that will be taken into account in the pre-COP and the COP26. On global health, finally, Italy will promote the strengthening of the global multilateral health architecture. Pandemic preparedness and response will be at the center of the Global Health Summit that will be co-hosted by Italy and the European Commission on May 21st. And finally, really, Italy will co-organize at the end of June, together with the World Food Programme, a dedicated event under the Italian G20 presidency on the role of logistics in preparedness and response for COVID-19 and for future humanitarian crises. And this is a very important agenda. I hope we will have the support of many people, not only from the institutions, but also from bottom, among young people, above all among young people in our country and all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that was perfect. I would love to actually at this point move on to Christina. Christina, we know that you come from the radio producing world and focus on youth. In this environment of fake news and misinformation, how has that affected youth in your experience?
It's kind of like how it affects everybody else. The pandemic has been a period of heightened tension, fear, economic and social difficulties. And that's just the perfect breeding ground for misinformation. So, everything from COVID-19 conspiracy theories to propaganda and fear mongering. And it's just made accessing really good information at this very most critical moment so much more difficult. And that's had devastating impact across the world. So, and especially as life has moved more and more online, and we've all become so dependent on this digital space, it's one of the things about the digital space is that a lot of it has been designed to, I guess, prey on or human insecurities, and then that's built on a traditional media space that some of us may idealize as it was better back in the day, or it was something easier to deal with. But if you're Black or brown or LGBTQ or from another marginalized group, you
or even a
will
woman.
probably Exactly. You will have different experiences with that space. You might think it was always fake, always toxic. So I think in addressing all of that, we just have to recognize the historical, technological, economic, all of those power imbalances that have been baked into the present moment, into the present system, and embrace equity-based, human-centered solutions going forward. And that's one of the things that we do in my own work at Talk Up Radio, in addition to challenging young people with media literacy and giving them skills to, I guess, see agendas, understand bias, that kind of thing. We also have to rework the relationship that the media has with young people. It can't just be about harvesting their fears and using their data for money. It also has to be about empowering them to engage with us critically, to be able to say, no, I no longer want your content. Yes, I want your content. It's about a power imbalance, and we have to give power back to young people as part of the global movement of giving power back to people in media.
So actually looking at it from the other side, what is our responsibility in terms of telling stories, or how can we tell stories that actually inspire young people to act and to make moves on the things that we're talking about?
Yeah, so it's about, we all make choices every single day in what we highlight, what we promote, what we choose to be associated with. And so we have to think of that as power. It's not just something frivolous. And I think a lot of what's happening in this age is that we've allowed what we do online to be framed as sort of us as passive, where we're just sharing or doing things. But no, we have a lot of power in what we do. And so we have to take that very seriously. And as we share, positive stories of youth innovation or accomplishments or action, we also contribute to a culture of possibility. We show people that these things are possible, that this is, a roadmap to what you can do. And that's important. But at the same time, I guess I want to push back a little bit about the positive part, because I think, some of the stories that have really empowered action across the world over the last year have not been positive stories. They've been very much youth anger, youth rage. They've been protests. They've been, to some extent, violence.
They've been inspiring, though. So maybe not positive, but certainly inspiring.
Yes. So, just to make sure that when we're sharing stories, we're not going for what's comfortable or what's easy or what we've become used to. We also have to empower marginalized voices and have some difficult conversations as well.
And live in this culture of possibility, which I love. Now, moving on to you, Ilona, you and the Igarape Institute do incredible work to combat inequalities and fight for civic space. And I know in your most recent book, In Defense of Civic Space, there's a chapter about us being at a turning point. So considering how the pandemic has affected development progress, what needs to happen today, in your opinion, for us to turn things back around?
Well, thank you. This is a big question. So just start, I think, saying we need big ideas. So I believe we need to craft a vision that is inclusive, sustainable, and as was already mentioned here, intergenerational. I believe at the moment we kind of lost a global narrative and we need to rebuild one. And it has to be both universal, but also include the voices and engagement of the ones left behind. So I also believe that we need to embrace networked multilateralism, but a bold and action-oriented one. And this means accepting that multilateral action is not just about states anymore, but also civil society, cities, the private sector, and many others. Because the old ways of working are inadequate to the systemic and interconnected challenges that we face today. But for that, we need better incentives for cooperation and collective action. So this starts, I believe, with building inclusive contracts from below. So if citizens really feel that they are let down or left out, they will not be supported. So first, these are big ideas. Second, I think we need just really to look at the moment for the big opportunities. The good news is that we know what has to be done to achieve the SDGs. So the science and evidence. So I think we have it. The knowledge is growing. So we need to share. So part of this is about, I think, able and competent leadership, and I would say here especially of women, but also adequate resources and new technologies, which will have, by themselves, just a huge impact. We need to deal with that well. So some proposals, I believe, that are ready to be ramped up because they offer tremendous promise to accelerate the SDGs. And I would just pinpoint some. Universal basic income. I believe that should become a more permanent fixture of the development landscape, given all that we've learned. So open government and open democracy, digital inclusion, and universal access to the internet. This is critical now more so than ever. So, and on the climate front, the declaration of climate emergencies, the formulation of zero carbon strategies, and I think major investments in mixed energy matrices, as Kim already mentioned, all these points, especially renewables. These are all ideas whose time have come, but we need to ensure that climate action comes with climate justice, and this means getting our climate financing right. I feel all these issues, honestly, especially acutely, as someone from Brazil, we're doing our best trying to work with coalitions of states, actors, business, environmentalists to align the protection of the Amazon forest with human development and a green economy. So finally, I believe we need to get over this short-termism and double down on this intergenerational thinking and long-term thinking. And for that, we need to bring young people interests and voices to the table. So I'd say in a nutshell, that's a little roadmap to what we should be just acting collectively to achieve.
That's incredible. And it almost makes you want to tell people to tweet it right now. But we have a few seconds just in our little moment. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how we promote inclusivity, because there's such a tendency towards silos. And part of it is human nature, but it's also how we've been talking about it. What are your words of encouragement for how to get out of that mindset?
Nadir, I think first we need to learn how to listen again. I think we've lost the capacity to dialogue, and Christina mentioned like beautifully, so I think reach out, learn, listen. We have more in common than we think. And that starts, the possibility of change, because otherwise in our silos, we have our own echo chambers, and that won't help us to achieve, all these big things we have ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And now, last but not least, Tasneem. You've described yourself as an outsider in your community who became an insider as you retold the story of Saudi women through photography. What does the world look like for women at this moment through your camera lens?
Honestly, I guess because I'm a woman, so it will always sound different, but I think women are very resilient. The more that I photograph women across the world, in the Middle East, and then specifically, of course, in my home country, Saudi Arabia, I realized that regardless of any kind of obstacle, we will still pursue it until we succeed. So when women couldn't drive up until 2 years ago, there were still women that educated themselves and went and became lawyers or became professors at university and nurses and doctors. So there was always a challenge from society or a government or sometimes any authority of yours. But whatever authority can be, you will still kind of persevere and work until you get what you think is the right path. And for me, I mean, when I say I'm an outsider, it's because I was born and raised abroad. I was, born in the US, grew up in the UK, and then I came to Saudi as a teenager, and I felt as an outsider, yet an insider. And I still feel that I'm always trying to kind of navigate between being a Westerner because I'm raised with speaking bilingually English and Arabic, and I'm neither a fully Westerner and I'm neither a fully Saudi, I guess, but then I try to navigate between the two. One of the things that I find very much frustrating is that we really do have so many commonalities across the world, yet we always try to think of ourselves, or media will always, come with this image of like we're so exotic, or we're so different, or we're so scary, or we're so and it's not just me as a Saudi. I'm saying like in general, everything that's different will always be coming with a space of fear. And I think we need to shed away from that and actually start focusing on all the commonalities that we have. We grieve, we celebrate in the same way.
It's incredible to hear. But I guess as a photographer, you're also constantly sort of envisioning. And I wonder, when you think about what your dream world looks like, what is that? And what do we need to do to get there in your mind?
Because of COVID, I realized that women are actually domestically abused much more than before. And this is, again, across the world. I envision a world where women are not just equally paid and equally represented, but feel safe and feel that they can be themselves regardless of their religious or racial or their, I just feel like I am safe to be who I am. And I think that's also even for men. Like, there's a lot of minorities, there's also a lot of misrepresentation, but if I just feel safe to exist, to me, that's a very safe world.
It's incredible. Are there any other sort of visual bits of inspiration, or as inspiration versus positivity, that you turn to, things that you think would be sort of inspiring to the world if we thought in that visual language? What inspires you when you look at it, and how can we all have access to that in your mind?
I think when we're taking photos, it's always, I'm taking something away from you. I'm taking your voice, I'm taking your narrative and your experience, and I'm coming with some sound of authority. And I feel that it's the time that we steer away from that and we start sharing stories. Because once I understand your story, I will come with a lot more empathy. My approach will be, I am as equal as you, if not even like you are much more higher regards, if you're someone that comes from a lot of like refugees, people who are coming from war-torn countries and conflicts. And sometimes that conflict is within us also, not just, in war, and it doesn't have to be with weapons. It can just be something that, like I said before, it's in our heads if I don't feel safe. So I feel a lot of times for me, when I'm photographing someone, I always ask that it can be a collaborative project. So I will take your photo as you would like me to see it, and you would like me to show the world. The caption is yours, the platform is yours, and I'm just sharing your story to give you the full dignity for the rest of the world to see.
That's really beautiful. So it's framing the visual as story, even though we often think of it as words. It's all of these creative mediums. That's amazing. So when I have a group of such luminaries and people who think so deeply, but in such different ways, it's always nice to come away with some concrete, practical action, since this is the Global Festival of Action. So I wonder if we could go around the horn one more time and hear from each of you what you think everyone watching today can do, like right now, to help turn it around for people and for planet. Does that make sense? Do you want to kick us off again, Akim, since we've missed you?
I was going to use another minute to think, but there are so many things. I think begin where your life connects to something around you and where passion can drive this. I think, at the end of the day, none of us can change the world on our own, but I think when you combine that which you care about, which speaks to your heart and your soul, and you then relate it to perhaps the people you live with, or the people who live down the street or live across the border, then you become, I think, not just compassionate and empathetic and caring, you become effective because you combine your own energy. And I think, again, let me turn to the SDGs. I mean, to some, they may read in a very abstract way, but if you're looking for a menu of where, some of the greatest priorities are of what needs to be done, you find them there, and then relate them to something that makes you get up in the morning and say, yes, that's where I would like to make a difference. And I think that's the way to go about it, because for each one of us, it will be different depending on who we are, where we live, what is the circumstance that we are confronted with. I mean, if I, just look at our panel and think of what Marina has to think about right now with the G20 summit. Ilona lives in Brazil, where, we are in a horrendous moment of the pandemic. Tasneem, the two worlds that you describe, or the many worlds that you move in. Chris, talking into a microphone, talk radio, often not seeing your audience and yet relating to it. I mean, these are the sort of universes in which we move. So I think that would be my answer to it. Thank you.
That's a fantastic answer. And I love this idea that the goals are abstract, but only until you look right at them and you sort of turn them into your own. And they've been built that way. So that's, I think, beautiful advice. Marina, what about you? What can the folks watching us do right now, in your opinion, to help turn it around and make 2021 the moment and turning point we need it to be?
is sustainable only if the most fragile and vulnerable countries and territories are able to share a prosperous future. For this reason, as you know, for the G20 presidency, Italy chosen 3 Ps, the 3 Ps of UN 2030 agenda: people, planet, prosperity. That means an idea of holistic development. And on this field, from my point of view, and your event is very clear on this, COVID-19 has shown that global solidarity is needed to leave no one behind. That is one central point in our agenda, also at national level. And every individual action matters. Every individual action, every day, in everyday life, everyone can play a role. That means in the government, in the professional roles, everywhere, university, research center, among young people. So every individual action matters if we want to have an inclusive and sustainable development. On this, I believe really that transformative and innovative ideas from young people and new generations are key. And we as governments should be able to ask them and to listen to them, not only to ask them to give us ideas, but also to understand their ideas and to take it to have concrete results in the future. And I therefore I call everyone to join us in our efforts to drive global actions towards the 2030 agenda, because I'm convinced that the time is now.
I love that, Marina. And I have to say, it sounds like you are inviting folks to reach out to you directly. So they'll be tweeting you, I'm sure, as soon as you are finished with the panel. But it's great to hear, too, that it is about everybody. And I would say not just university students, high school students, as we saw with Greta, elementary school students. We're seeing it everywhere. And it's wonderful to see you highlight that and expand on it. Christina, what about you? What's your one thing that everyone can do right now?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a shift in our own minds, actually. So I think Mr. Akim and Miss Marina have it right. It's really about going back to thinking about human beings and connecting with each other and starting there. And then from there we talk about communities, we talk about society. And so I need everybody to think about each other and shared humanity and a shared space. And then from there, we can make it bigger and more ambitious. And we definitely need to, because the problems that we're facing are so massive. So we're going to need to be bold. We're going to need to move from a place of possibility rather than fear and really scale up what we're doing and embrace, different narratives, people who we've historically not listened to. We're going to need to embrace them. And, it's going to take a lot of massive change. And in any way that you can prepare yourself for that and get involved, I think is a good step to take right now, wherever you are, in whatever way you can.
But it starts with seeing yourself as part of a whole. And yes. I think that's an incredible exercise for all of us to practice every day. So it's great to hear. What about you, Ilona? One thing?
Yeah, I would say engage, and just echoing everyone's, choose the goal or the cause that touch you. If you haven't discovered yours yet, connect with your purpose, listen to yourself, listen to what is important to you. So take your ideas and your mobilization strengths to start just acting in practice. Research the work of civil society organizations that defend what you believe. Get involved, volunteer, donate your time, can be knowledge, can be resources, whatever is possible to you. And I would say also consider public service, consider running for office. And I would just echo the saying, no matter where you are, honestly, you can be part of changing the world. So I believe we can all turn it around, and let's do it, because we have no choice and time is ticking.
And it's up to us. It's up to us.
It's in our hands. I think that's empowerment feeling. People need to believe it's possible. You can do it. And you won't gonna go back once you try it. Believe me.
There is no turning back. And finally, Tasneem.
I would say that know that you're not alone. This is the first time that we really understand a lot of, I guess, emotional troubles. Initially, media didn't really speak much about it, and I think because of COVID that we understand the importance of really looking inwards and reflecting inwards instead of just always looking out. I do agree with what everyone said, that we have much more power than we realized. And civilizations and countries and people have sparked from social media. Even, you know, a tweet has made a whole collapse in a country or other. So I think that we have much more power than we assumed or thought that we did. And with that knowledge and that experience, we can now move forward and say, okay, so now we can do something positive with this power. We can make better impact. We can not just limit our, you know, or if you're eating meat, then we understand that the consequences that comes with, but not just with the environment, but like, if you're a man, ask, how can I do better? If you're a woman that has much more power than you do, how can I be better human? Like, if we should all start asking, how can we better, be better human beings, and then move onwards and start, you know, educating ourselves and finding out that I think also recognizing and reconciliating with the things that we've done in the past, whether it's not just me personally, but like the authority that I work with, or the company that I work with, or the group. Like, a lot of times now we're coming with the call out culture, and we're understanding that we have much more power with social media, but that's not always been positive. It's more of just understanding that I have done something wrong and I can move on now and make the world better.
And be accountable. So it's talk to each other, listen to the answers, and then be accountable. Well, this has been incredible. And I said it before, it's always my favorite part of the festival to just sit down and hear from brilliant people. And this has been no different. So even in this digital virtual space where, you know, we've got a teleprompter and I can't move too far around, you have honestly made this just an incredible experience, and we've only just begun. So I have to say a huge thank you to all our extraordinary speakers, both for the invaluable insights today, and there were many, and the critical work you do every single day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Conversations like this are the reason the festival is so special, because they inspire us to deep thought and to dramatic action. So I'll just say it again, the time is now. There are so many things to see, do, and learn here at the festival, and so many amazing people to learn from. Activists, experts, creatives, and leaders of every stripe. Never mind all of you. So get out there, keep connecting, keep absorbing, keep driving change. And of course, keep the conversation going everywhere you can with hashtag Turn It Around and our handle @SDG Action. We've got a full and exciting day of festival programming ahead, and we'd love for you to share your experience of it with us, with each other, and with the whole wide world. Finally, don't forget, I'll meet you right back here at the end of the day for one of my most favorite events, the SDG Action Awards. We had so many incredible entries, and I know you, like me, cannot wait to meet our finalists and find out our winners. So see you there. Until then, have a great day one of our SDG Global Festival of Action.